Now back up on Talbot Street, east of Hiawatha Street on the north side, this is the Dowler block. It's now occupied by Richard Cockrell's bookstore, and the right-hand side of it is Reitman's. It was, I forget the name of the dry goods store there. Maxwell, W. Maxwell there.
If you're on good terms with Dick Cockrell, you could ask him to take you down to the basement, and you can see all the tube arrangement that Dowler's had for, remember when stores used to have those compressed air tubes, and you gave the girl a $5 bill and she put in a little compartment and zipped through the tubes and down the basement. Somebody made the change and zipped it back again, and well, all the tubes for that are still installed in the basement of Cockrell's there.
You know, I've been down in that basement dozens and dozens of times. I've been down there 3 or 4 times this year, and I didn't know that.
Well, Don, don't ask me to say anything about that.
My God, I didn't know they were down there.
Next time, lift your eyes up and look at the ceiling. Eh?
No, I didn't know that. There weren't too many stores in town like that. Harding's had that system, and Anderson's and Gould's had that. But that's the only ones I know that. That was a fascinating thing to a kid.
Yes, it was. It was very interesting to watch those compressed air things worked. And
how those things zipped around that. It was really fascinating. I guess they didn't trust the clerks.
Well, it saved, I don't know, it was a matter of not trusting them. You sort of centralized your bookkeeping. Yeah. And you had all your bills in one place, and the people you didn't have to have cash registered at all the spots in the store.
Yeah. It took maybe 2 to 3 minutes to get your change.
Yeah.
It really didn't take all that long. Now, if you just notice the brickwork on the left-hand side of that picture, and then look at the next slide, and you'll see the same brickwork in there. Now, just slide it back a minute, Mark, and you'll see that that's the same building.
Now, Don, I'll ask you a question. Is the brickwork on the left-hand side?
Left, on the left. It's the same on top, too.
All right.
But it's clear to see that.
I'll put the other picture on then, and now, which is the brickwork we're looking at in this picture?
It's
on the right?
It's on the left.
On the left.
Yeah. This building was built about 1880, and it was the city roller mills. And I believe it was built by the May brothers, William Henry and I forget the other May brother. They had originally started on Celestine Street.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't the originators of the mill either, but they bought it when it was on Celestine, moved it here, and operated it here for a few years, not too long, and then they sold out, and this mill was moved down onto Southwood Street.
Now, just a minute, Don, that's a brick building.
Yeah.
Now, they moved that brick mill from Celestine?
No.
They moved the mill and then built it in brick.
They sold to Dowler.
I see.
They sold out to Dowler, and they moved down to Southwick Street, across the road from the fire hall, across the street from the fire hall, into a bigger building. Yeah. But it wasn't May Brothers then. I forget the name of the mill at that time. But this was quite a going concern. You see, there's an alley there on the right-hand side. Next to this building we're seeing here was this building.
That filled in the alleyway.
That filled in the alleyway. Everard McCready built this. I don't know when, maybe about 1898, 1900. And McCready ran a bicycle store. He sold pianos in there. And he was there until about 1910. He sold out to Joe McAlpin. And then he came, I don't know where he went for about 10 years. And then he came back to St. Thomas and was in business again. Not in this location. This is where Robertson Harris the jewelry store is now. Everard McCready has 3 daughters still living.
Does he?
Yes, they're all in their late 70s and maybe 80s in Toronto.
In St. Thomas?
No, in Toronto.
Oh, Toronto.
They moved away from here in the 20s. Yeah. They haven't been back since then. I believe there's a connection between May, William Henry May in the mill, and Everard McCready. Oh, yeah. Everard McCready married a daughter of William Henry.
Yeah, Everhard is a very strange name.
Yeah, it is. It is. Everard McCready. Evie, they called him.
Yeah.
Evie McCready. Now, this is across the street, and a little to the east, the Catholic Church. This church was built in 1870 by Father Flannery. Shortly after he came to St. Thomas, he was a great money raiser. He could raise money in a very short period of time. That's how he came to Ontario. Bishop Walsh brought him to raise money to pay off the debts in London, and he did it in a year.
Did he really?
And when he came,
he was probably the most popular man that St. Thomas ever had.
Yeah, I think without a doubt.
He was a Catholic priest, and that was a time then when there was a lot of criticism between Catholic and Protestant, and I think it speaks something for the personality of Father Flannery that he really was terribly popular among all the circles in St. Thomas, and
he was
a very fine priest.
He was here from 1870 until 1898. And at his first sermon, he said, "You may not like the looks of me, but the longer I'm here, the better you'll like me."
Yeah.
And it was true.
Listen, Don, he was. There's an interesting connection between Father Flannery and the Donnellys from Luca.
Yeah.
Just tell us about that one.
Well, I don't know the story, but Father Flannery came from a place in Tipperary called Neenah, and the Donnellys came from a place in Tipperary that was 8 miles away from Neenah.
Oh, yeah.
And when the Donnellys got into trouble up in Lucan, and the priest up there would not give them confession, and they consequently stopped going to Mass, they came to St. Thomas, to Father Flannery. And the Donnelly girl, Jenny, was married in this church, or at least by Father Flannery, in 1874. And Will Donnelly had been coming to St. Thomas before that, to Mass and for confession. And they continued to come to Father Flannery for about 10 years. Anyway, he was a close connection.
Yeah, he was a much better priest than that man in Lucan.
Oh, well,
I don't think was much of a priest, but
he was an American. Father Connolly. He was an American, and came from Quebec to Lucan, and very unpopular with the Donnellys. That's for sure.
Yes, he certainly was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And guilty, I think, of unethical practice against him. This is the. I'd like to speak about that separate school. This is the oldest school building in St. Thomas, which is still used. It was built in 1878. And they tell you that the year before that, there had been the old wooden church had been used as a school, and that had burned down. And they say that Father Flannery went around to St. Thomas and called on every family in St. Thomas to raise money.
Protestant and Catholic.
It doesn't matter who they were, every family in St. Thomas, and he got money from them all. And he, I think in one afternoon, he raised $1,000 calling on people. And they started to build that school. It was finished in '78. And it still exists in its entirety, and it's a very beautiful building, only it's hidden by the modern additions. And anybody's watching this program, just walk along and have a look at that. There you see it as the way the building should have been displayed, with a nice view to it. Mm-hmm. And of course the old church to the right was replaced in when, about 1910 or something?
Yes, by the present
present church. But that's a historic building, that separate school, and it should be preserved. I think if anybody suggests taking it down, we've got to start a campaign to save it.
Mm-hmm. This is the original church that was built in 1830, and it stood there for 40 years until Father Flannery, Dr. Flannery, he was made a doctor.
Was he?
Yeah, Dr. Flannery built the next church, and this was the church that the cemetery was all around, and he also had that taken away.
Yeah, and put it out on the road to Port, where the present Catholic cemetery is. And that was the wooden building that was used as a separate school for a while, and that burned about 2 months before they finished the other building.
Yeah. Father Flannery, when he came to St. Thomas, he built the new brick church, a beautiful, fine church. He built the separate school. He built the convent. He built a brick. No, he didn't. It was built. It was already built. But he did start the Sisters of St. Joseph's there, and they're still going now. Many of his works are still being carried on today in St. Thomas. This is another rather unusual picture showing the convent, and it's from, well, the church is in the background there. It's from on White Street.
Yeah, you couldn't take that picture today because the old Dominion store's in the road.
That's right, it is, yeah. This is kind of from the parking lot of the Dominion store there. And this is at the corner of Mondamon and Talbot by the City Hall. and it's Fernley, is it Fernley Flowers now? It's a flower shop.
Yes.
Clinton's Flower Shop.
Well, what was the name of that building?
The Columbia Building. It was a hotel there for many years. And then it was a theater, the Columbia
That's
Theater.
the Columbia Theater.
The McLeans ran it for many years, the McLean family. And Vince Berry owns it today.
Oh, yeah.
But it's still there. This is just a sketch, not a photograph, but it still is.
But then the front would have been changed quite a bit, and that little triangular part in the top would have been removed, eh?
I think it's there.
What?
I think it's still there.
Is it?
Yes, I think it's still there.
I'm as bad as you down in the basement of Richard Cockrell. Maybe I haven't taken a good look at that building.
I'm pretty sure it's still there. Now this is looking from the top of the City Hall eastward along Talbot Street. And you can see the Imperial Bank building on the right, and then the Dake House, which is gone. Further on, the Wilcox House. It's still there. And on the left side, in the background, you can see the top of the Queen's Hotel, which is gone.
Yeah.
And then these buildings up here. The Masonic Temple wasn't built at this time when this picture was taken. Sometime around the turn of the century, before 1910, that this would have been
What's
taken.
that big sign on the side of the building? Is that a window with curtains in it? Oh,
Yeah, I think it is.
that's a window with curtains. The other window on the left doesn't have curtains.
Yeah, that's right.